Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Sanchit, I'm a psychiatry trainee in the UK.
And I'm Varun, I'm a radiology trainee in the UK. So you may have heard in the news recently that the BMA, which represents doctors in the UK, that is the British Medical Association, is asking for pay rises of up to 30%, 3-0, over the next 5 years. This is being framed as a pay restoration, not necessarily a pay rise. So what we thought we'd do is have a chat about some of the issues surrounding this, why this is happening, why it possibly should happen, why it possibly shouldn't happen, and try and give you, I guess, somewhat of an objective view.
Yeah.
Disclaimer, we are both doctors. Obviously, there is potentially some conflict of interest here,
Yeah.
but we'll try and keep it to the facts. Conversations like this often descend into anarchy and chaos and shouting, all sorts of craziness.
We'll just give you information, you can make your own mind up. So let's just start off with, why is this happening? Why is the BMA asking for doctors to receive a pay rise of 30%? So the biggest reason this is happening is because the BMA claims that doctors' pay has fallen in real terms by 30% since 2008. Now, how can this really be possible? 30% since 2008? It's a massive amount. That's essentially working 12 months of the year for 8 months' pay.
Some quick maths there.
I know, right? So generally speaking, for a salary to retain its value, it has to keep up with inflation. So if goods such as groceries, buying petrol for your car, if things like this increase by a certain percentage due to inflation, then your salary has to kind of keep up with that for it to have the same buying power as it did before.
So since 2008, doctors have been given sub-inflation pay rises. So that means each year the government will say, we will increase your salary by X amount, but inflation has been more than that. So effectively, you can't really buy the same amount of things or afford the same amount of things as you could previously. This includes a pay freeze on doctor salaries between 2011 and 2013, and then a fixed 1% pay rise between 2013 and 2017. The cumulative effect of all this is that a doctor's salary is effectively 30% less than it was in 2008. So what the BMA is asking for is a 30% pay rise, what it frames as pay restoration, because they want to restore the pay to what it was in 2008 over the next 5 years.
I think it is a pretty large demand, but I think it's a demand that's come on the back of many years of getting nothing, as we've explained, 1% pay rises or pay freezes.
Yeah. Okay, so that sounds all great. You know, in an ideal world, everyone would get paid what they feel is just and appropriate.
Give me that 30%.
But obviously we don't live in an ideal world.
No.
Obviously we are a taxpayer-funded system, so if we need to be paid more, that money has to come from somewhere, and that'll be from the government. So the main argument is, we just can't afford it.
Okay.
You know, we as a country, we've been through the pandemic, obviously the furlough scheme, we had to fund that. With the inflation being so high, there's an argument to be made that if we increase salaries generally, not just for doctors, but generally across the board, there will be what's called a wage price spiral.
Okay.
So that's basically where if you increase everyone's wages to match with high inflation, that spurs on even more inflation, and inflation gets even more entrenched into the system. So we just can't do it right now.
Well, I think a lot of critics would argue that the government can afford to do so. It just doesn't really want to. And I think over the last few years, you can point to a lot of money that has been spent in very wasteful ways by the government as proof that when money is needed, it can be found. So for example, everyone knows good old track and trace. That cost the government £30 billion for essentially a worthless app. Now, if the money can be found to make something like that, the money can be found to give doctors, nurses, barristers, everyone a pay rise according to what they deserve and according to what they used to be paid. Well, how much would pay restoration cost in comparison? Well, to put into perspective, the cost of giving all NHS staff a 10% rise in 1 year is approximately £3.4 billion. That's all healthcare staff in 1 year. So I think it's safe to say that pay restoration will cost significantly less. However, I get your point about inflation. And obviously that is a difficult one for us to really talk about because we're not financial experts. However, if the real issue of not giving doctors the pay rise is due to inflation, then why was the pay rise not considered when inflation wasn't so high? And does it mean that once inflation goes back to normal levels, will the pay rise be considered then? I don't think it will.
So doctors are already paid more than the average worker.
Yeah.
Although we do work more than average hours, I guess. In this economic climate, why should doctors be prioritised for a pay rise and not, you know, nurses, teachers, policemen? Why not them?
So I completely agree. Doctors are definitely paid more than the average worker. But at what point of pay erosion do you then sit back and think, actually, something needs to be done about this? It's 30% in 2008. Do doctor salaries need to go down 50%? Do they need to start working for minimum wage? At what point would you say okay, now something needs to be done and pay does need to be restored to a certain level. Also, a really important point that I think does get missed out is that doctors aren't advocating for a purely doctor-only pay rise. We're not saying that doctors need this 30% pay rise and no one else should get one because they're paid fairly. In fact, a lot of doctors will argue that doctors need to have their pays restored, but so do nurses, paramedics, teachers, rail workers. Everyone in the public sector has had their pay frozen, or their pay hasn't risen in line with inflation for the last 15 or 20 years, and everyone deserves a pay rise. However, we can only advocate for ourselves. We can't advocate for all the other careers. They have their own unions that are fighting their battle for them. As we see currently, rail workers are on strike, barristers are on strike, and other health professionals are also thinking about it as well. It's not a race to the bottom. But Varun, doctors are asking for a 30% pay restoration. But right now, the health service seems to be failing. There are 6.2 million people on waiting lists. A&E queues for 8 hours, 10 hours at a time with backed up ambulances outside. Why should doctors get this pay restoration when they're not really doing that good a job?
So people are understandably frustrated and angry. You know, they're not getting the care that they need, the care that they want. 6.2 million people on a waiting list. That's something like every 10th person you see on the street is on a waiting list.
It's crazy.
That is mad when you actually think about it. But I think you need to separate the two issues of the health service is failing, and that's not because doctors or any group of people, for that matter, are sat there playing golf during the day or sipping moe at night.
I wish.
It's not because we're not doing enough. It's because demand is just outstripping what we can provide. For example, this March just gone, 2.1 million people attended A&E. That's the busiest March on record. So that kind of demonstrates what kind of demand we're talking about. Across the country, medical, surgical clinic, they're overbooked or there are extra clinics being run and still people are waiting to see their doctor, see their surgeon. So the issue here isn't we're not working hard enough, hence we don't deserve pay restoration. In fact, if things are so busy, it probably means we're working at an intensity greater than is sustainable in the long term.
Yeah, and that's why you're seeing so many doctors burn out.
The issue is the system itself is failing. What the answer to that is, I don't know. Is it, more funding? Is it a different model of funding? Is it stop providing as many things for quote unquote free? I don't know what the answer to that is.
But we've all heard the stories, Varun, about doctors moonlighting privately and earning hundreds of thousands of pounds more than the NHS salary. So why can't they all just do that? And why do they have to increase the NHS salary?
I've been reading the Daily Mail, good old Daily Mail, I see. Some doctors do work privately. Doctors who do work privately tend to be in specialties like orthopedics, dermatology, plastic surgery maybe. It's only certain specialties that have that private work available. Now that's because the NHS has a monopoly on work, and also because private stuff only tends to be done for things that are low risk.
Yeah.
Elective work, outpatient work. Because in the UK, we haven't got the facilities to provide sort of higher level care for emergencies or complex procedures. So it tends to be for sort of those sort of specialties. And even within those specialties, it's for certain operations.
Yeah.
So any private work that these people do is outside of their NHS work. It's not during NHS time, so it has to be that is in their free evenings or free weekends. And for the vast majority of people, they'll be working at least 40 hours a week for the NHS.
Yeah.
It's a very select few people in a select few specialties who are working, quite frankly, long hours. So it's not like, oh, you're a doctor, why don't you just work more privately and you will earn double your salary? That's not really how it works.
There are certain plumbers earning hundreds of thousands of pounds a year because they own their own business, but it's not the same as all plumbers earning that or all teachers earning that. Just the same way, all doctors aren't earning that amount and they are the anomaly, they're the outlier, and that is not normal.
In fact, the vast majority of doctors in the UK don't work privately. So there's some of the reasons why we potentially won't get this pay restoration, and I guess some of the rebuttals to say why we should get pay restoration. I suppose the next point to discuss is how is our pay actually decided in the UK?
So in the UK, recommendations for doctors' pay is made by the DDRB.
So the DDRB is supposed to be an independent body that reviews evidence submitted by doctors, that's from the BMA, and evidence by the health minister from the government side. They review the evidence from both sides and then decide whether a pay rise is needed, and if so, how much by. Now, over the past couple of years, the health minister usually writes to the DDRB prior to them releasing their verdict and says, we as the government can realistically only afford X amount, so don't recommend more than that, please. Also, the recommendation that the DDRB provides isn't legally binding, so the government doesn't necessarily have to listen to that. So I guess in an ideal world, the BMA and the government will sit down around the table and come to some sort of agreement. What happens if there's a strong disagreement, even after negotiations?
Well, as a monopoly employer, the NHS doesn't really have to agree to anything.
I suppose, like I said earlier, it's not like we can just go work for Virgin.
No. Unfortunately, there is a monopoly employer, which is good for the public in a way, but also it makes it more difficult for medical staff like nurses and doctors. Realistically speaking, saying if there are big differences between what the BMA are asking for and what the government want to give, then there's only really one route to go down, and that's industrial action.
Yeah, so I suppose if doctors feel strongly enough that they want this pay restoration and the government aren't willing to give it to them, there's two options for doctors. You either lay down and accept it, or you go on strike. They're your two options realistically. We can't speak for every single doctor in the UK.
No.
Objectively, we can't say, oh, there's a 90% appetite for industrial action. But I think anecdotally, amongst our friends and people we just work with that we know, junior doctor-wise, there does seem to be a strong appetite for strike action if needed. Hopefully it'll be a negotiated settlement and we don't have to strike, but who knows. Generally speaking, within the wider public sector and within the wider economy of the UK, I suppose, it's going to be quite a difficult time because at the moment, rail workers are on strike, barristers are going to go on strike, teachers are saying they might go on strike, doctors are now saying they might go on strike, nurses obviously are saying they want a pay rise. Sounds like it's going to be a very interesting few months and years.
So let us know what you think in the comments box down below. And if you have any other comments or any general thoughts about doctors' pay, again, feel free to write that down in the comments box below. But otherwise, we'll see you guys next time.
See you later.